I was dead for 6 minutes, and in that silence I saw him. Jesus Christ stood before me. He looked at me with eyes that could see through time itself, and he said, "Mara, warn them. Leave 4 cities before December 25th. They will be attacked during 3 days of darkness." When I woke up, I was on the hospital floor, surrounded by people shouting my name. They told me it was cardiac arrest, that I imagined it, but I didn't imagine that voice, that I didn't imagine what he showed me. I saw New York burning with gold light that turned black, San Francisco wrapped in a crimson fog, Atlanta sinking under choirs that sang to empty pulpits, Seattle silent, screens glowing like eyes in the dark. He told me these 4 cities will fall, not by bombs, not by armies, but by something we can't see, something we've invited. And I know what you're thinking, that I thought it too, that I was crazy, delusional, broken. But every night since that day, I see the same thing, the same shadow spreading across the map, the same date, December 25th. Listen to me. You may not believe now, but when the lights go out, it will be too late to doubt. Before I tell you what's coming, I need to know where you're hearing me from. Type your city below. If this message reaches even one person in one of those 4 cities, it might save a life. And please, like this video and subscribe. It's not for numbers. It's so we can keep warning people before the darkness hits. This isn't entertainment. It's a countdown. My name is Mara Ellison, that I was dead, and now I'm here to tell you what I saw beyond the veil. December 25th, the 3 days begin. The first sound I heard was the frantic beeping of machines and a woman's voice shouting my name like it was the last rope keeping me from slipping away. I opened my eyes to blinding white light, sterile and cruel, and for a moment I thought I was still in that place, where time didn't exist and every breath felt like eternity. Then the smell of disinfectant hit me and I realized I was back. Alive. There were faces hovering above me, nurses, paramedics, someone crying behind a camera lens. My producer. Of course. The broadcast had been live. Millions had watched me collapse on air. Now, they watched me breathe again, the miracle unfolding under fluorescent lights. "Easy, Mara," a nurse said, pressing a hand to my shoulder. "You're safe now." Safe. The word cracked inside my skull like thunder. I wanted to scream that they were wrong, that I had seen what comes after safe, after denial, after the end of all things. But my mouth was dry, my throat raw, and all I could manage was a whisper. He told me to warn them. A few of the nurses exchanged looks. My producer forced a nervous laugh. "She's still disoriented," he said to the others. "Let's not put that on camera." But as they wheeled me down the hall, the lights above flickered. For a heartbeat, every bulb turned red, then black. And in that moment, I saw it again. New York burning like a torch against the night, San Francisco sinking under waves of blood-colored mist, Atlanta's spires splitting open like tombs, Seattle swallowed by static and silence. I gasped, my hands clutching at the sheets, trying to tear myself free. "No. It's happening again." The nurse pressed something cold into my arm. The visions dimmed, but they didn't vanish. They hovered there behind my eyes, like coals refusing to die. When they finally left me alone, I stared at the television mounted on the wall. The news anchor was smiling, speaking about Christmas parades, light festivals, hope. Behind her, the ticker scrolled meaningless headlines about the stock market. All of it felt obscene. My fingers found the silver cross around my neck, warm, pulsing, as if it remembered the light I'd seen. Tears filled my eyes. "It wasn't a dream," I whispered. The monitor beside me steadied into a calm rhythm. But deep inside, I knew the truth. The heart they had restarted didn't belong to me anymore. It was just a borrowed drum, beating down the seconds until the prophecy began. Sleep became a stranger after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the world I once knew burned away, and another one, sick, shimmering, and spiritual, unfolded behind my eyelids. It didn't feel like dreaming. It felt like remembering. The The first vision came as faint whispers against my window, like wind calling my name. When I opened my eyes, the hospital room dissolved into a high view of Manhattan. The skyline glowed molten gold, every skyscraper shining like an idol raised to Mammon. I watched as people below rushed through the streets, their hands full of shopping bags and glowing screens, eyes blind to the heavens above. Then the light darkened. Gold turned to black smoke. One by one, the towers folded in on themselves like paper, vanishing into the abyss. I screamed, but no one heard me. Before I could catch my breath, the air shifted, tasting of salt and iron. I stood on the hills of San Francisco beneath a sky the color of fresh blood. Music pulsed from every street corner, wild laughter echoing between rainbow flags that fluttered against a crimson wind. The celebration was endless, a fevered joy that hid something rotting beneath. I looked closer and saw the laughter twist, the faces contort, their eyes hollowed by pride so deep it had become worship. Above them, the red skies split open, revealing a great mouth of light swallowing their voices whole. Then the vision turned south. Atlanta shimmered in gold and glass, megachurches towering over streets lined with homeless tents. I could hear the choirs, their harmonies perfect, their smiles flawless, but the ground beneath them bled. The blood seeped between the marble tiles, staining the offering plates at their feet. Pastors raised diamond-covered hands to bless their flocks, but their mouths were sewn shut with golden thread. I wanted to shout, to tear the thread from their lips, but the hymn kept playing, a melody so sweet it made me sick. The final city was the quietest and the most terrifying. Seattle. The streets were dark, yet every window flickered blue from screens that never slept. People sat motionless, faces ghostly from the glow, eyes fixed on the data streaming before them. No one spoke. No one moved. The silence was absolute. I reached out to touch one of them, and their body crumbled into pixels, scattering into the air like ash. Above it all, I saw it. The dome of light that once covered the land, the grace that held everything together. It shimmered, thin as glass, then began to crack. The sound wasn't thunder. It was grief. I woke gasping, tears streaming down my face. Outside my window, the city lights flickered, and for just a second, I thought I saw smoke rising from the horizon. The first video wasn't supposed to go viral. I sat at my kitchen table, pale and shaking, a single candle burning beside my laptop. The glow made my face look hollow, haunted. I told myself it was just another report, another breaking story, but when I hit record, my voice trembled. I was dead for 6 minutes. I began, staring straight into the camera. And Jesus Christ told me to warn you. Leave 4 cities before December 25th. There will be 3 days of darkness. I uploaded it, shut the lid, and cried until dawn. By morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Messages poured in, some pleading for more details, others calling me insane, a few mocking me outright. Hashtag 3 days of darkness was trending by noon. People turned my trembling face into memes. My warning became a punchline. Prophet of panic, they called me. At work, the newsroom buzzed louder than usual. When I walked in, heads turned, whispers rippled like static. My editor, Grant, met me at my desk. "Mara," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We're all worried about you. Maybe take some time off, get some help." "I'm not crazy, Grant." He sighed. "You went on camera and said Jesus told you cities will burn. We can't have that under our banner." By that evening, I was locked out of my company accounts. My badge didn't work. The official statement said I had suffered post-traumatic stress following a medical emergency. I almost laughed. If only trauma could explain the smell of sulfur that now lingered in my dreams. At home, it got worse. My husband couldn't bear to watch me unravel. "You're scaring everyone," he said, suitcase in hand. "You need to stop this." I tried to explain, but he looked through me like I was already gone. The door closed, and the silence that followed felt like judgment. Still, I kept recording. Each night, my voice grew steadier, my warnings clearer. December 25th isn't Christmas this year, I told the camera. It's a deadline. People mocked, but others started to listen. Messages arrived from strangers who claimed to have seen the same visions, cracks in the sky, storms that glowed red. I began to think maybe I wasn't alone. Then one night, while reviewing my latest video, the candle beside me flickered out on its own. The screen glowed cold blue, and for a heartbeat, my reflection wasn't mine. It was watching me. Jonas called me out of obligation, not faith. His voice was distant, distracted, the sound of a man scrolling while pretending to listen. "Mom, you have to stop with this apocalypse thing," he said, a brittle laugh hiding discomfort. "People at work are sharing your videos. They think you've lost it." "I died, Jonas," I whispered. "Do you understand? I met him. He told me to warn you." He sighed, heavy and tired. "You had a heart attack, Mom. You saw whatever your brain needed to see. Please stop embarrassing yourself. Stop embarrassing me." The call ended before I could speak again. The silence afterward was unbearable. It echoed through the house like an accusation. I stared at the candle on my desk, its tiny flame fighting the drafts that slipped through the window. He didn't believe. None of them did. That night, I pushed away my dinner and knelt on the cold tile floor. "Lord," I said, "if my words can't reach him, then let my prayer do what my voice cannot." I stayed there until dawn, fasting, praying until my throat burned, until my knees trembled beneath my weight. I prayed for his soul, for mercy, for the chance to see him once more before the sky turned black. Outside, the world carried on as if nothing were wrong. Christmas lights blinked along rooftops, stores blasted carols into the frosted air. But every time I stepped outside, I could feel it, the heaviness, the stillness before a storm that wasn't made of weather. The birds had gone quiet. Even the wind felt tired. On December 23rd, the night before Christmas Eve, I woke to the smell of sulfur. It was faint at first, like burnt matches, but it grew stronger, thick enough to sting my eyes. I stumbled through the darkened hallway, my heart pounding. When I opened the window, the sky was bruised, deep violet, the color of dying light. The street below was empty, but something moved beyond the horizon, a low hum rolling like thunder beneath the earth. I turned back to the camera on my desk, the red recording light still on for my last message. My face looked hollow in the reflection, my eyes fever-bright. I leaned close, whispering to the unseen audience. If you've heard this far and still haven't subscribed, ask yourself why. If you think it's a coincidence you're hearing this, it's not. Someone out there is praying you wake up before the lights go out. Then I blew out the candle, and for the first time, I wasn't sure the darkness would ever end. The sound came like the world tearing in half, a single, merciless crack that rolled through the heavens and shook the bones of the earth. The glass in my window shuddered, dishes clattered to the floor, and then everything went dark. Not the soft darkness of a moonless night, but a swallowing void, thick and absolute. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic, even the faint buzz of the street lamps, gone. For cities fell silent in the same breath. I fumbled for the box of matches on the counter, my fingers trembling so hard that two snapped before one finally caught. The flame flared to life, and I lit the beeswax candle waiting on my kitchen table. Its honeyed glow spread just far enough to show the outlines of the room, shadows trembling on the walls like frightened things. Outside, a scream cut through the stillness. Then another. Then too many to count. I pressed my hand against the window pane and peered into the street. What had once been lit by holiday lights was now a black expanse, the houses swallowed by the night. Somewhere down the block, a car alarm wailed briefly before dying mid-blare. And then, faintly, Something moved, slow, deliberate, just beyond the reach of the candle's light. Not a person. Not exactly. The air felt wrong, heavy and charged, as if the world were holding its breath. I could smell the sulfur again, stronger now, seeping through the cracks in the glass. My phone was dead, the screen a cold mirror reflecting my face, drawn, hollow, eyes wide with the kind of knowing that only comes too late. I backed away from the window, clutching the candle to my chest. The screams had turned into a chorus, pleading, crying, shouting names that no one answered. Somewhere, glass shattered. Somewhere else, footsteps pounded the pavement, growing closer and then fading as if swallowed by the dark. The shadows along the far walls stretched and quivered, no longer following the candle's rhythm. They seemed to move on their own. "Lord," I whispered, my voice barely more than breath. "If this is the beginning, let me be steady." The flame flickered, struggling against a sudden gust that shouldn't have been possible with the windows closed. For a heartbeat, I saw something in the reflection, eyes glinting in the black, far too many of them, watching. Then the light went out. We gathered in the basement of the Miller house, 6 of us huddled close beneath the weak light of a single candle. The air smelled of wax and dust and fear. Mrs. Miller clutched her rosary tight enough to cut her palms, whispering fragments of prayers that fell apart between sobs. Outside, something moved along the street, heavy steps, dragging sounds, the soft thud of hands against doors. The wind didn't howl anymore. It breathed. Slow. Watching. Waiting. I opened my Bible, the thin pages trembling in my hands. My voice broke on the first line. "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." The others joined in, one by one, the words a shield we could barely believe in. I could feel the weight of every syllable pressing against the dark, daring it to come closer. As we prayed, a pressure built behind my eyes, a sharp and sudden ache that wasn't mine. Jonas. I felt him, his fear, his confusion, the way his heart hammered in his chest as he ran through some distant city swallowed by the same darkness that held us. I saw flashes, his apartment, overturned furniture, the glow of his phone's screen dying mid-call. He was calling for me, though he didn't know it. "Please," I whispered into the floorboards, my hands shaking. "God, keep him. Don't let them touch him. He doesn't believe, but he's still yours. Have mercy." The candle flame bent sideways, a ripple of air sweeping through the basement. The scraping began at the windows then, long nails dragging across the glass, a sound like bone against stone. The Millers gasped, their children burying their faces in their mother's coat. I kept my eyes closed, kept praying louder. "Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler, and from the noisome pestilence." The scratching grew frantic, 100 desperate fingers clawing at the panes, testing the barrier between us. The walls pulsed with the sound, as though the house itself were breathing through its cracks. But the glass didn't break. The door didn't move. The darkness pressed harder, and then recoiled. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the children's sobs stilled, replaced by the sound of our own shallow breaths. The candle flame stood tall again, steady and golden. I knew then that the prayer had held, not because we were strong, but because something stronger had taken pity on us. I lifted my head, tears streaking my face, and whispered into the quiet, "Jonas, hold on. The night is hunting, but it cannot have us, not yet." When dawn finally came, it did not rise like it used to. The light was thin, colorless, as though it had forgotten how to be warm. For a long time, I didn't trust it. I stood by the window, hand hovering over the curtain, afraid that pulling it back would show me nothing but more darkness. But when I did, the world outside was visible again, hollow and changed. The street was silent. Cars sat abandoned at odd angles, their doors open, their lights long dead. The snow that had fallen during the blackout lay undisturbed, no footprints, no tire tracks, only the faint marks of things that had moved where no human should have. Smoke drifted from the Miller house across the way, a soft gray ribbon against the pale sky. I could not hear the children's voices. I walked outside, barefoot on the frozen steps, candle still in hand. It was absurd to bring it into the morning, but I couldn't let it go. Its little flame had carried us through the long night, and somehow it still burned, steady against the breeze. The light touched the frost and made it shimmer like glass. Then I saw him. Jonas stood at the end of the path, his coat torn, face streaked with dirt and something darker. He looked smaller somehow, the way children do after waking from a nightmare. His eyes met mine, and the disbelief in them broke into something raw. Faith, fragile and new. He stumbled forward, falling into my arms before I could speak. "I saw it, Mom," he whispered into my shoulder. "I saw what you meant. I prayed, and it stopped. I don't know how, but it stopped." We stayed like that for a long time, saying nothing, just breathing in the same cold air that now smelled of ash and ozone. Around us, the other survivors began to emerge, neighbors blinking at the sun, clutching each other, moving as though afraid the light might vanish again. Later, when Jonas slept, I sat before the camera one last time. The red light blinked, waiting. I looked into it and spoke softly, my voice steady. "You've heard the warning. If you feel the fear, that's conviction. Subscribe, share, and pray, or walk away and remember this moment when the darkness comes for you." I let the words hang in the air, then reached for the candle beside me. It still burned, even in daylight. I left it there, a single flame standing against the quiet, proof that faith had survived the storm.